Every frame you notice, every story that holds you, every idea that moves culture, there's a system behind it. This is Empath with Carolyn DeClue and Bo DeClue, where creativity meets strategy and careers are built with intention. Breaking down the tools, the workflows, and the decisions shaping creative careers. New episodes every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Empath. Feel the creativity.
A few years ago, I was on a shoot for a brand campaign. It was a big one. The agency side had maybe 9 people on set: a strategist, 2 creatives, 3 account leads, a producer, and a couple of people whose jobs I never really did figure out. And the deliverable was a 60-second spot and some cut downs. Now, jump to this year. Same kind of brand, same kind of budget conversation. You know who they hired? One creator. One person with a camera, an audience, and a point of view. She wrote it, shot it, cut it, and posted it. And the brand's team told her it outperformed the agency campaign from the year before. And here's the part that makes it more than a fun story. The agency didn't lose that job to a better agency. It lost it to an individual who had quietly built everything the agency used to sell: the strategy, the production, the distribution, the audience. One career carrying all of it.
That used to be impossible. You needed the building, you needed the departments, you needed someone above you signing off before anything went out the door. And somewhere in the last few years, every one of those requirements quietly dissolved. Not with an announcement, nobody sent a memo saying the model changed. It just stopped being true. One hire at a time, and most of the industry is still catching up to it.
Took me a minute to catch up to it myself.
This is Empath. I'm Carolyn DeClue.
And I'm Bo DeClue. Feel the creativity.
This episode's brought to you by Neon Alchemy. Story is how companies become human. We handle that part. Link in the show notes. New episodes every Wednesday at 7 a.m., wherever you listen.
So today's episode is about that shift. The creator economy didn't just grow up next to the agency model, it absorbed it, piece by piece. The full stack: content, product, education, software, running inside a single career.
And before anyone hears that and braces for another episode telling you to quit your job and start a newsletter, this isn't that. This is about understanding where the leverage went so you can decide how much of it you want to pick up.
Here's where we're going. Industry Pulse looks at what's happening to agencies and where the work followed the people. Deep Dive walks the full stack layer by layer: how content feeds product, how product feeds education, and how a handful of creators are now shipping their own software.
Inside the deep dive, a new invisible move. This one changes how you read every about page and every course pitch you've ever scrolled past. I'll leave it there for now.
Career strategy covers the order of operations. Building the stack out of sequence is how people burn out or go broke, and there's a more sane path through it.
Then, in industry voice, 4 profiles, 4 careers that lined up in a row tell the story of this episode. From the agency founder who taught his way out to the creator who never needed the building at all.
And Perspective Reset brings it back down to earth for everyone who heard the words full stack and felt tired.
Fair warning, some weeks that includes me.
Same. All right, let's get into it.
You're listening to Empath, where creativity meets strategy and the path forward gets clearer. What's changing? What's staying? What actually matters? This is Industry Pulse.
Let's rewind to late 2025. Last November, Omnicom and Interpublic Group closed the biggest merger in advertising history, $13.5 billion, creating the largest holding company on the planet. Within weeks, 3 agency networks that had existed for generations, DDB, FCB, and Mullen were retired, folded into the org chart, and switched off.
FCB went back to 1873. That agency was older than radio, older than film. It survived 2 world wars and the invention of television, and not last year.
So why open with old news in the middle of 2026? Because the merger was the earthquake, and this year decides what the map looks like after. 4,000 jobs went in the first wave. Axios reported another 10,000 or so roles affected as the company sells off pieces of itself. That's happening around us right now.
And the question behind all of it is why the merger happened at all. The easy answer is AI. And sure, that's part of it. But the quieter answer sits in one comparison eMarketer published about last year's ledger. Last year, worldwide ad spending grew 8.6%. Holding company revenues fell 1.2. Spending up, agencies down, same 12 months. That's the picture the merger answered, and nothing this year has reversed it.
Let's think about that for a second. The pie got bigger and the biggest slices got smaller. The money didn't disappear. It went somewhere, and this episode is about where.
Some of it went in-house, brands building their own teams, which has been happening for years, but the growing share went to individuals, and the current numbers make the case. The Interactive Advertising Bureau has U.S. creator ad spend on track for about $44 billion this year, up from $37 billion last year, growing several times faster than the media industry overall.
And listen to how the IAB describes it now, because the language tells you the era changed. Creator content is core media channel, not an experiment or an add-on. Nearly half the buyers they surveyed called creators a must-buy. Institutional vocabulary coming from institutions themselves.
And the big brands aren't shy about it. Last year, Unilever, one of the largest advertisers on earth, said it would move half its ad budget into social and work with 20 times more creators. By December, they were working with close to 300,000 of them.
And their CEO doubled down this year, speaking to investors at an industry conference in remarks eMarketer covered. He said the times of big corporate, big brand messages are gone. And watch what the holding companies are doing, because it tells you they see the same picture we do. The merged Omnicom put enterprise AI at the center of its pitch, and across the industry, the retooling pulls talent away from creative and media planning towards data science, engineering, and consulting.
So the biggest agencies on earth are quietly becoming technology and consulting firms.
Because the making, the thing they used to sell, is exactly what individuals absorbed first. When one person with a modern toolkit can produce work that holds its own against a full crew, the institution has to find something else to charge for.
And there's an irony in that pivot I can't stop noticing. The agencies are betting on automation to cut costs at the same moment brands are paying a premium for the one thing automation can't produce. A human being an audience already knows and believes.
Two escape routes from the same burning building, pointed in opposite directions.
One runs toward the machines, the other runs toward the person.
And this connects to something we talked about in episode 5. When we covered freelancing, one thing kept surfacing. The cold pitch was dying, the network was replacing it, and work flowed towards people someone already trusted.
Trust doing the vetting before the conversation started.
This is the same force one level up. A brand hiring a creator isn't buying reach the way they bought a media plan. They're buying a relationship that already exists. The creator spent years earning an audience's attention, and the brand is renting access to trust that it could never manufacture on its own.
And seeing the production side of this up close, when a brand shoots a traditional campaign, everything gets sanded down. Every frame goes through approvals, every line gets softened by committee, and what comes out the other end is polished and forgettable. It sounds like a person because it is one.
And audiences can tell. That's the part agencies keep underestimating. The performance gap between creator-led content and studio-produced ads isn't a rounding error anymore. Brands are seeing it in their own results, and budgets follow results.
And the deal structures are maturing fast. The flat fee, the pay me to post model, is giving way to commissions, revenue shares, pay tied to what the content moves.
That cuts both ways. A performance deal rewards the person whose audience buys and exposes the person whose numbers were decoration.
And you don't build commission structures around an experiment. You build them around a channel you plan to live in.
The creator stopped being a line item under miscellaneous marketing and became an infrastructure.
There's a structural piece too, the one I think about most. An agency sells a process, briefs, decks, rounds of revisions, a team of specialists handing work down a line. A creator sells a shortcut through all of it. One person who understands the audience because they built the audience, who can go from idea to published in a day instead of a quarter.
Speed is a competitive weapon.
Speed and no translation loss. Every handoff in an agency is a place where the idea gets a little blurrier. Strategy hands to creative, creative hands to production, production hands to the client. By the end, the thing that ships is a photocopy of a photocopy. The creator never hands off. The idea that ships is the idea they had.
Before this turns into a eulogy, we should be fair to the other side, because the agency world isn't rolling over, and there's a number from the ANA and the 4As that explains which part of it's thriving. Their client agency tenure report puts the average relationship at an independent shop at 7.3 years, at holding companies 5.8.
A year and a half of difference in a business built entirely on relationships.
Yes, so when a merger puts thousands of those relationships through 18 months of reorganization, independents aren't winning on scale or price. They're winning on what clients were already staying for. And the people let go didn't leave the industry. They're starting smaller, sharper shops and taking relationships with them.
And that's its own version of this episode's story. The strategist who got cut in the merger didn't stop being a strategist. She's just selling the skill without the building around it now.
That's the thread I want people to catch, because it's easy to hear all this as creators versus agencies, some kind of turf war. It isn't. It's an unbundling. Everything the agency did still needs doing. Strategy still needs doing. Production, distribution, audience insight, all still in demand. What collapsed is the assumption that you need a 200-person company to deliver it.
The departments became skills. The org chart became one person's week.
And once you see the industry that way, the merger headlines read differently. Consolidation at the top isn't strength. It's what's left doing math on itself after the growth walked off the door.
Smaller pie, bigger forks.
And that's not automatic good news for creatives. That's where I want to land this. Because when the institution was doing the bundling, the institution also carried the risk. Steady paychecks, someone above you making the business decisions, a machine that found the clients while you did the craft. When the bundle moves into a single career, all of that moves with it.
The leverage and the weight arrive together. Nobody hands you one without the other.
And to be clear, agencies aren't vanishing from the map. A global launch across 40 markets still needs coordination no individual can supply. Regulated industries still need the compliance machinery. The enterprise work that moves slowly and touches lawyers, that stays institutional.
So the full version of the forecast isn't that agencies die. The huge coordination problems stay with the giants. The sharp, specialized problems go to independents and creators. And the comfortable in between, the retainer for being generally helpful, that's the part with no future.
And the creators didn't win this by beating agencies at the agency game. Nobody outpitched a holding company. They changed what was being sold. An agency rents its clients and audience from platforms every campaign forever. A creator brings one that already showed up on its own.
Rented attention against owned attention. Once brands saw the difference on an invoice, the outcome stopped being a debate. For now, here's the picture to carry out of this segment. An industry didn't shrink last year, it moved. Out of the towers, past the org charts, into the hands of people who spent years building something no merger can consolidate. A direct line to an audience that chose them.
The agencies spent a century renting that line to brands. The creators own it, and ownership, it turns out, was the product all along.
The industry keeps changing. The patterns underneath it don't. This is Empath. The tools you use shape the work you create. So what's actually helping and what's getting in the way? This is Deep Dive, Tools and Workflow.
Industry Pulse gave you the wide shot. Money moving from institutions to individuals. This segment is the close up. What does the individual version of an agency look like from the inside?
And we're calling it the full stack, borrowed from software, because the shape is the same. 4 layers, each one built on the one below it. Content, product, education, software. Miss a layer, and the ones above it wobble.
Let's start at the bottom.
Content is the layer everyone can see, and almost everyone misreads. People treat it like the business. It isn't. It's the first impression. The newsletter, the videos, the posts, none of that is the product for a full stack creator. It's how strangers find out you exist and decide whether to trust you.
So it's basically free work with a job to do.
2 jobs, actually. Distribution is the obvious one, the audience building. The one nobody talks about is research. Every piece of content is a test, which topics land, which questions come back in the replies, where people fall off. The audience is telling you what to build next every single day, and most creators never read the analytics.
And that's the difference between a creator and a full stack creator right there. One posts and hopes, the other treats the feed like a lab. By the time the second one builds anything to sell, the audience already has voted in public.
Let me get practical about the workflow, because this is where my post brain kicks in. The people running this layer well aren't making 40 pieces of content a week. They're making one substantial thing, a long video, an essay, an episode, and then cutting it down. The clips, the quotes, the shorts, all derivatives of the one piece that took the thought. And the discipline that goes with it is a review habit. Once a month, look at what came back, not just what got views, what got replies, what got saved, what strangers quoted back at you. Views tell you what the algorithm liked. Replies tell you what a person is about to pay for. Different signals, and only one of them feeds the next layer.
So the content layer, done properly, is one deliberate piece a week and one honest review a month. That's the engine.
Which takes us up a layer. Product.
Product is where the trust converts, and the range is wider than people assume. Digital templates, preset packs, sample libraries, physical goods, a coffee brand, a camera strap. What the layers below have in common is this: the product answers a question the content already surfaced.
And I'd push everyone listening towards starting embarrassingly small. The first product is not your magnum opus. It's the $20 version of a thing your audience already asked you about. You're trusting whether trust converts at all, not building a flagship.
The failure pattern runs the other direction. A year building the giant course or a perfect product line launched to an audience that never asked for it. That's the layer skipping we warned about, and we'll come back to it in career strategy.
One caution flag on this layer before we move, because the physical version gets romanticized. Digital products scale for free. Physical products come with inventory, fulfillment, returns, cash tied up in boxes sitting in a garage. Creatives can fall in love with the idea of a product line and end up running a warehouse instead of a career.
So the sequencing inside the layer is digital first almost always. Prove the demand with something that costs nothing to duplicate. Physical is a reward for certainty, not a way to find it.
More of the stack on the other side of this. The 2 layers where things get interesting. Teaching what you know and building tools nobody else will build. Plus a new invisible move that low-key rewired how I read the internet.
Everyone has a workflow. The question is whether it's the one you planned or the one pressure chose for you. This is Empath.
Two layers down, two to go. And this next one belongs to you.
Education, the layer where a creator stops selling things and starts selling capability. And I want to be careful here because we've been on both sides of this topic. Episode 6, we spent a whole stretch warning listeners about the learning trap, collecting courses instead of shipping work.
Certificates stacked tall, portfolio sitting empty.
That warning was for the buyer. Today's angle is the seller, and here's the bridge between the two. The reason the learning trap exists is that most creator courses are built to be bought, not built to be finished. The sales page is a masterpiece, and the curriculum is a brain dump.
So, what separates a course that deserves to exist?
It's structure. In a previous conversation, we got into scaffolding, the idea that learning happens when someone builds a temporary support around you and then removes it as you find your footing. I do, we do, you do. That's the quality bar. If your course hands people information without a scaffold, you've sold them exposure and called it education.
And your unfair advantage as a creator educator is that you already know exactly where your audience gets stuck. The replies told you, the comments told you. You're not guessing at the curriculum. You watch people struggle in public for years.
Design backward from the stuck points, and the course almost writes itself. Design forward from everything you know, and you get the brain dump.
And format follows the same logic, right? Because there's a menu now: self paced courses, live cohorts, workshops, memberships.
And the scaffolding principle sorts the menu for you. Self paced works when the skill is mechanical. Follow the steps, get the results. The moment the skill involves judgment, when the learner needs someone to look at their work and say, here's why this isn't landing, you need a live component. Cohorts and workshops cost more to run and they should cost more to join because feedback is the scaffold, and feedback doesn't come from a video.
So the price isn't for the information. The information's free everywhere. The price is for the structure around it.
Nobody pays for the information anymore. They pay for sequence, feedback, and somebody who's arranged the climb so they don't fall off of it.
Top layer, software. And this is the newest part of the stack, the one that separates this era from every earlier version of the creator economy.
Because a creator shipping software used to be science fiction. You needed a funded team and a couple of years.
Now, a creator who deeply understands one niche can ship a tool for that niche, sometimes with a tiny team, sometimes closer to alone. And the pattern to notice is that the software almost always comes last, and it almost always solves a problem the creator hit in their own workflow first. The audience watched them hit it. The tool arrives pre validated to a customer base that already exists.
And to be clear about what this layer demands, because it's the one where a solo career stops being solo, software needs maintenance, support, updates. It's a commitment with no finish line.
That's why the critical version of this layer, for most creators, is a partnership. You bring the audience, the niche knowledge, the distribution. A developer or a small team brings the build. Revenue gets shared, and everybody's doing the part they're locked in on.
The mistake is thinking the software layer requires you to become a programmer. It requires you to know a problem so well that building the answer becomes obvious. Who types the code is a staffing question. And step back and look at what we just walked through because the stack compounds on itself. Content found the people, product proved the trust, education organized the knowledge. Software turned the knowledge into leverage.
And that's the machine. 4 layers, one person's career. So here's the question we should ask before anyone starts drawing their own diagram. What's the connective tissue? Because the layers don't hold together on their own. Something makes a stranger move from watching free videos to buying a product to trusting you with their education.
Something does, and most people can't see it, even while it's working on them.
You saw it, you felt it, but you didn't notice it. This is the invisible move.
You felt this one, even if you've never caught it happening. You follow a creator for a few months, the content's good, sure. Then one day they launch something, a course, a product, and you buy it. And it feels like your decision arrived at freely, all on your own.
It did feel like that every time.
Trace it back though. The moment trust formed wasn't a tutorial. It was the video where they talked about the year everything fell apart. The post about what they got wrong. Somewhere along the way, you stopped following their content and started following their story. This week's invisible move is the founder narrative. The founder narrative is a personal story engineered, not confessed, engineered. And once you know the architecture, you'll see it everywhere. 4 parts: the wound, where they struggled, the turn, the insight or the system that changed things, the proof, what happened after, and the invitation, the suggestion that you're standing earlier on the same road they walked.
And it's deployed with placement this deliberate: the About page, the course sales page, the welcome email when you join the newsletter, the Why I Built This post that drops right before every launch. Same story retold at every doorway you might walk through.
Because it's doing the job an agency used to charge for. Brand strategy was a department. Teams of people constructing an identity for a company, an origin, a mission, a reason to care. The full stack creator carries all of that as one lived story.
When a brand signs a creator partnership, the footage is not what they're paying for. Any crew can make footage. They're buying the story the audience already believes because that belief doesn't transfer to an ad no matter how good the ad is.
Now, the part of this I care about most. And I want to emphasize this. The strongest version of this move is the true one, not the safest, the strongest.
Because the invented version is out there, the rented sports car, the rags to riches arc that never happened.
And every invented narrative is a load bearing lie. The whole stack rests on it, and when it cracks, and they crack in public, the collapse becomes the new story. You don't get to rebuild on that ground. A true story works differently. It deepens as the career does. It survives scrutiny because there's nothing to find. Audiences are pattern detectors, and a polished invented arc reads as performance. A true one reads as recognition.
People can smell the difference even when they can't articulate it.
And this move has two takeaways, depending on which side of the screen you're on. As a consumer, knowing the architecture is protection. The next time a sales page walks you through someone's rock bottom on the way to a buy button, you can ask the useful question: is this a true story offered in good faith or a wound being performed at me?
What's the tell from the outside?
Verifiability mostly. A true narrative has edges you can check, places, projects, work you can go look at, a timeline that holds together across old posts. The perform version stays vague at exactly the points where a true one would get concrete. And there's the softer tell. True stories include the parts that don't flatter. The detour that went nowhere, the stretch where the systems didn't work. Invented arcs are suspiciously clean.
Too smooth to have been lived.
The lived ones have fingerprints all over them.
And flip it to the creator side because this is the part I want people to hear. The takeaway is the opposite of what everyone fears. You don't need a dramatic origin, you need an examined one. Your history already has the wound and the turn in it. The move isn't inventing a story, it's structuring the one you've been carrying this whole time.
So here's the working lesson, and it's short enough to use this week. Take the four parts and write one sentence for each. The wound, one concrete moment, not a montage of struggle. The turn, the insight that changed your direction. Because that's the thing you now teach yourself, whether you've noticed it or not. The proof, what changed after, and in terms someone could verify, and the invitation, who's earlier on your road.
4 sentences? That's the entire exercise?
That's the diagnostic version, and here's the tell built into it. If any sentence needs embellishment to work, stop. Don't fix the sentence. Go back to your history and find the part that doesn't need it. It's there. Almost nobody's story is too boring. It's usually just unexamined.
So the assignment, and we mean it as homework, not a metaphor. Find your story this week, draft the 4 sentences, then put the results somewhere. Your about page, your bio, or a pinned post. Doesn't have to be polished, it just has to exist.
And if you want a second set of eyes, send us your four sentences. We may feature it in one of our future listener spotlights with your permission and talk through what makes it land.
Back in episode 2, we said a recognizable voice is what makes an audience return. This is the companion truth. The voice brings them back. The story is why they buy.
The agency spent 100 years building stories for other people. The full stack creator is the story. And of everything in the stack, the four layers, the tools, the workflow, this is the one piece nobody can unbundle as long as it's true.
Better workflows don't just shape the process, they shape the outcome. This is Empath. Creative work doesn't build careers, direction does. This is career strategy.
Twice this episode, we've promised the order of operation, so let's pay that off. The deep dive told you what the stack is. It didn't tell you the thing that decides whether it works, the sequence.
Because people hear full stack and they hear to-do list. 4 things to start this quarter. That's not a strategy. That's a burnout schedule with a nice diagram.
So here's the order that holds up, and we'll take it stage by stage. Stage 0 is the work you're already doing, the job, the client roster, the freelance practice.
The unglamorous stage.
The load-bearing stage. Your existing work is the investor in everything that comes after. It funds the years the audience takes to build, and nobody hands you a term sheet for it. It's just your own steady income doing quiet venture capital.
Stage 1, content. And the honest number attached to it is time. For most people, this stage produces close to nothing for a year, sometimes 2. Not because they're doing it wrong, because trust accumulates at trust pace, and no growth hack can change that.
And this is exactly why stage 0 can't be skipped. The person who quit everything to make content full-time isn't more committed. They're on a countdown. Savings drain, panic sets in, and panic makes desperate content. Audiences can feel desperation through the screen.
While the person still earning has a strange advantage. No countdown. They can make the thing they'd make if nobody was watching yet, because nobody is. That patience reads on camera. Calm is a content strategy.
And put a number on the commitment. Stage 1, done sustainably, is about 5 focused hours a week. One deep piece, a review habit, some replies. 5 hours for 2 years beats 20 hours for 4 months, followed by a disappearance.
Consistency compounds. Intensity just tires out.
Also, your day job is your material. The problems you solve at work this week are the posts your future audience needs. People treat employment like the thing delaying the creator career. Most of the time, it's the thing feeding it.
Stage 2, the first product. And the trigger for this stage isn't a date on a calendar, it's a signal. When the same question keeps arriving in your replies, when people ask if you sell the templates, the preset, the checklist you keep mentioning, the audience has written your product brief for you.
The $20 answer to the question they already asked.
And the point of stage 2 isn't the revenue. The first product's job is proof. Proof that people pay you directly. Proof for your own head as much as your bank account. Plenty of people stall here not because the product fails, but because selling to an audience feels like risking the relationship, so they never make the offer at all.
Episode 6's shipping fear, back in a new outfit. There, it dressed up as one more course to take. Here, it's I don't want to seem salesy.
Same fear. And making the offer is not a betrayal. It's the invitation half of the story we covered earlier.
Stage 3, education. And the trigger here is repetition again, one level up. When you've helped enough people pass the same stuck point that you can see the pattern, when your answers have started to organize themselves into a sequence, you have a course. Before that, you have opinions.
Scaffold it. Design it backward from where people stall. Charge for the structure. But the sequencing insight for this stage is about you, not the material. Education is the first layer that puts you on the hook for someone else's outcome. A product either works or gets refunded. A student who doesn't improve is a heavier kind of feedback. Don't take that on until your practice can absorb it.
Stage 4, software. Last for a reason. It's the layer with no finish line, and it should only exist once the other 3 have proven the problem, funded the build, and lined up the customers.
And here's the thread running through all 4 stages that nobody puts in the diagram. Each layer isn't a new revenue stream, it's a new identity you have to grow into. And the identity shift is usually harder than the workload.
Walk it through, because I felt the version of this changing careers myself.
Stage 1, ask a private craftsperson to become a public voice. And for many creatives, that's the steepest step on the ladder. Stage 2, ask the voice to become a merchant, someone who names a price and stands behind it. Stage 3, ask the merchant to become a teacher responsible for other people's progress. And stage 4, ask the teacher to become an owner whose decisions employ other people's time.
Craftsperson, voice, merchant, teacher, owner. And when I left the military for cinematography, then moved into post, the pattern held both times. The tools came fast. Becoming the person the new role needed, that was the slow part.
So when a stage feels stuck, check which kind of stuck it is. Sometimes the strategy's wrong. More often, you're resisting who the next rung asks you to become. Different problems, different fixes, and only one shows up in a business book.
So that's the ladder. Now the failure patterns, because each one is a rung skipped. Pattern 1, product first. Building the thing before anyone's watching. A year on a course, launched to 40 followers, greeted by silence. The work wasn't bad, the order was.
Pattern 2, quitting first. Torching stage 0 for the dream. It feels bold. It makes a great announcement post, and it converts a 5-year plan into an 18-month emergency.
And the fix for pattern 2 isn't staying employed forever, it's replacing the cliff with a dial. As the stack proves itself, month after month, not one lucky launch, client work shrinks to match. 5 days becomes 4, becomes 3, nobody has to jump.
Pattern 3, everything at once. Newsletter, product line, course, app, all launching this year. 4 layers built by one exhausted person is how you end up with 4 half-built layers and a health problem. The stack is sequential because you are one person. That's not a limitation to hack around. That's the design constraint the whole model rests on.
And there's a quieter fourth pattern, the opposite failure. Never leaving stage 0, the freelancer who's been meaning to start the newsletter for 6 years. For that listener, the move isn't dramatic. It's one piece of content this week about a problem you solve for a client. The ladder starts that small.
It's the kindest failure on the list because it costs nothing to fix.
Let's make the whole ladder concrete with one worked example, because abstractions don't stick. Picture a motion designer 5 years in, employed at a studio. Year 1, she changes nothing about the job. One newsletter about the craft, one piece a week, built from problems she solved on real projects. 5 hours a week, no announcement, no drama.
Year 2, the same questions keep landing in her inbox, and half of them are about project organization. So the first product is her own template system, cleaned up and documented, priced low. It sells modestly. Modest is the win. The trust she built just cashed its first check.
Year 3, the same portfolio questions have repeated often enough to become a small live workshop, feedback included, priced for the structure. Around now, the dial starts turning. 4 days at the studio instead of 5.
In year 4 or 5, maybe a tool. The gap she and her audience have both hit 100 times, close with a developer partner, or she skips it and runs 3 layers happily for a decade. Both endings are a win.
Notice what never happened in that story? No resignation letter in year one, no launch to silence, no stretch where she was building four things at once. Every layer got triggered by a signal, not a fantasy.
The boring version of this story is the one that works.
Now, the question at the bottom of the whole segment: how much of this stack do you want? Because full stack is a description, not a commandment.
Keep going, because this is the part the hype skips.
Every layer you add trades craft time for business time. Some of the happiest working creatives I know run 2 layers on purpose: client work plus an audience plus one product. They climb to the rung that fits their life and stopped. On purpose is the key phrase.
The stack is leverage, and leverage is optional. What's not optional if you go for it is the order and the patience. Every layer feeds the next, and every one of them runs on the time you can't compress.
The stack is built in years, not launches. The launch is the visible 5%. The years are the product.
So climb in order, fund it with the work you already do, and let each layer earn the next one. The creators who look like they built an empire overnight will tell you the same thing every time. The overnight took a decade, and the decade was the point.
The work matters, but direction changes everything. This is Empath. The people actually doing the work and the projects worth your attention. This is Industry Voice.
We're doing this segment differently today. No interviews, no listener questions, 4 careers instead. Because lined up in the right order, they stop being 4 success stories and become one timeline. The story of everything this episode has argued. Start at the beginning of the arc. Someone who built the institution first.
Chris Do. In 1995, he started a motion design company called Blind in Los Angeles, one of the most competitive creative markets anywhere. He didn't know how to bid or run a sales call when he opened the doors. He figured it out, and over 2 decades, Blind generated more than $80 million in creative services for Nike, Sony, Google, and Microsoft, winning an Emmy along the way.
The classic agency success story, and that makes what he did next the interesting part.
And here's the detail that makes his second act less of a pivot than it looks. He'd been teaching the whole time, over 15 years on the faculty at Art Center College of Design while running Blind. The educator wasn't a reinvention. It was a parallel track that eventually became the main line. He took everything the agency knew: the pricing conversations, the client psychology, the business of design nobody teaches in art school, and turned it into the future: an online education platform. Its stated mission is teaching 1 billion people to make a living doing what they love. The man who built the building spent his second act handing out the blueprints.
And that's the first move in the timeline. The agency's knowledge unbundled from the agency and sold directly to individuals. Every person in this audience who's learned the business side of creativity from a video owes something to that turn.
Profile 2 is yours, and this one's going to hit close for a lot of our listeners.
Joey Korenman. He partnered with 2 people in Boston and founded a motion design studio called Toil, where he was creative director and lead animator for roughly 4 years. Boston being an ad agency town, the work came largely from the big shops there. On paper, he'd arrived. In practice, he was burning out. When Rive asked him about leaving that world, his answer was blunt. He told them it wasn't the creative work, it was the business side.
The craft was never the problem, the container was.
Yeah, so he walked out of the container and kept the craft. He taught at Ringling College, then went all in at School of Motion, which started as a series of After Effects tutorials and grew into a platform with more than 30 courses taught by industry professionals. He also wrote the Freelance Manifesto, which motion designers treat like a field manual.
And there's a mechanic inside his model our deep dive listeners will recognize. School of Motion gives an enormous amount away: free tutorials and a YouTube channel with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Then sells structured, feedback driven training on top. Free and paid aren't competing there, they're doing 2 different jobs.
The free layer builds the audience and proves the teaching. The paid layer sells the scaffold. That's the content funds education ladder running in the wild since before we drew it on a whiteboard.
And clock the difference between him and Doe. Doe ran Blind for more than 2 decades and grew the school alongside it. Kornman ran his studio 4 years, decided ownership wasn't the prize he thought it was, and left it entirely.
For Doe, the institution was the achievement. For Kornman, it was a container he'd already outgrown. That's move 2 on the timeline. Profile 3, back to you, and this one never entered the building at all.
Michelle Fan. She started posting beauty tutorials from a webcam in 2007, before creator was a job title anyone respected. Over 1 billion views later, she co-founded Ipsy, a subscription service that grew into one of the biggest beauty communities anywhere. Then she stepped away to run EM Cosmetics, her own brand.
And she co-founded Thematic, a marketplace helping creators find music from real artists for their videos. Read the stack off her resume. Content, product, brand, software.
with no agency chapter anywhere in it. Nobody trained her inside an institution, and nobody signed off on her ideas. And the reason it worked is the thing we covered in the deep dive. Her audience relationship was the brand strategy department. When Net Influencer interviewed her about the difference between her ventures, she told them, with EM, I wanted to build one brand rooted in my own experience.
One brand rooted in her own experience. That sentence is a founder narrative doing its job. She's not describing a product line, she's describing why the product line is hers.
And the receipts on that are literal. In 2017, a company she owned acquired EM Cosmetics outright from Ipsy so she could run it her way. The announcement went out over Business Wire like any corporate deal, except the acquirer was a creator buying her own brand back.
Remember how we closed Industry Pulse? Ownership was the product all along. She's the profile that sentence was waiting for.
Move 3. The person who never needed the building, building her own instead.
And the last profile is the art completing itself. Dan Coe, a writer and entrepreneur who runs what he calls a one person business and runs it deliberately. A newsletter reaching close to 200,000 readers that feeds everything else. Courses like the 2 Hour Writer, books, including The Art of Focus, and software. First Cortex, a writing tool he co founded, and now Eden, an AI workspace built for exactly the kind of creator he spent years becoming.
The full stack, on purpose, kept small on purpose.
And what separates him from the other three is that he's not adapting to the shift. He was formed by it. No agency pass, no institution to leave, no era before the model. He wrote in his newsletter, you literally just need to be able to teach your skill or interest. That's the entire agency proposition, compressed into one sentence and handed to a single person.
And connect his story to the authenticity beat from the deep dive, because his is a founder narrative that keeps its ugly chapters. He's open about the string of failures before any of it worked: freelance web design, e-commerce, agency work, years of ventures going nowhere before the writing model clicked. And he publishes his own revenue, roughly $10,000 in 2019, $100,000 the year after, past $1 million a few years later.
Fingerprints all over it. The detours stay in the story, and the story's stronger for them, exactly the pattern we described. The invented arcs are smooth, the lived ones limp a little.
That line's been living rent free in my head since you found it, because it's either inspiring or unsettling, depending on the decade you trained in.
Both. That's what makes it the right note to end the profiles on. Now step back and read the four in order.
Doe converted the agency's knowledge into something individuals could buy. Korenman took the craft and left the container. Fan skipped the container completely and built her own stack from a webcam. And Co runs the whole model as a quiet one-person operation like the institution was never there. Built in years, not launches. 4 people, 40 years of one shift. The institution used to be where a creative career happened. These 4 turned it into an option. And the next person on this timeline, the 5th profile, is somewhere in this audience deciding right now how much of the building they still need.
The work tells a story. So do the people behind it. This is Empath. Step back, look again. What changes when the perspective shifts? This is Perspective Reset.
So we spent most of an episode on people who turn themselves into institutions, and I want to check the temperature before we close, because I know how episodes like this can land. Somewhere around the 3rd success story, a voice in your head starts whispering that you're behind.
Just know that that whisper's wrong. And this segment is about why.
First reframe. The full stack is a map of what's become possible, and a map doesn't obligate you to visit everywhere on it. The healthiest thing you can take from this episode might be a clear decision to build none of it.
Because here's what the hype cycle never says. The creator economy's loudest voices are, by definition, the people selling the creator economy. The ones for whom the model worked are the ones with the microphone. The photographer that looked at all of it, kept her studio job, and spends her evenings shooting for nobody but herself. She doesn't post threads about her framework. She's busy having a life she likes.
She might be the best outcome in this entire episode.
The next one is the one I'd like to highlight. Even if you never sell a single thing, the stack is still yours to use as literacy. Understanding how content builds trust, how trust converts, how a story carries a career, that changes how you operate inside any structure, including a job. The employed creative who understands this model reads their own industry differently. They can look at their studio and see which departments are becoming skills. They can tell when their employer's business is drifting towards the disappearing middle we described, years before the layoff email. And they can build quietly, a small audience, a visible body of thinking without ever monetizing it, purely as insurance and leverage.
The stack is a way of seeing before it's ever a way of earning.
And the negotiation version is solid. The employed designer with 10,000 people reading her breakdowns walks into a salary conversation differently, not because she'll leave, but because everyone in the room knows she could. Options change posture, even unexercised ones.
And there's a version of this nobody covers because it doesn't make for a good thumbnail. You can join a stack instead of building one. Every full stack creator who scales ends up hiring editors, producers, designers, course builders. The creator economy isn't just a solo path, it's becoming an employer, and working 3 feet from the person who owns the audience is its own education.
Some of the sharpest operators in this space never built an audience of their own. They run the machine behind someone who did, with steadier income than the creator some month, and none of the exposure.
The institution didn't vanish. It's reforming at a smaller scale, around individuals instead of holding companies, and it needs staff.
Which means every skill this audience already has is hireable inside the new model, today without a single follower.
Third reframe, and it's the biggest one. Everything that changed this year, the mergers, the money moving, the model shifting, all of it is about the container. None of it is about the work. Nobody watching a beautifully cut sequence asks whether it came from a holding company or a home office. The craft didn't get disrupted. The org chart did.
And that should be steadying, because the org chart was never the part you loved.
I've cut for institutions and I've cut for individuals, and the timeline doesn't know the difference. The same problems show up: pacing, story, the take that's technically fine and emotionally dead. The work in front of me hasn't changed employer once.
The craft is portable. It always was. That's the quiet fact under this whole loud year. Whatever pulled you into this field, the cut that lands, the frame that holds, the sentence that finally says the thing, that's all still there, untouched, at the center of every version of the future we describe today.
The agency model didn't die. It got absorbed, and now it lives as a skill set that one person can carry. But carrying it is a choice about how you want to work. It was never a referendum on whether you get to.
So if you leave this episode with a plan, good. Climb in order, take the years. And if you leave it with a decision that the ladder isn't yours, that's not falling behind. That's knowing where you stand.
The industry spent this year deciding what a company looks like. Nobody but you decides what a career does.
Clarity changes direction. This is Empath.
That's episode 9. We opened with a shoot that needed 9 agency people and a campaign that needed 1 creator, and spent the episode explaining the distance between those two facts.
Industry Pulse gave you the year the towers shook, the biggest merger in advertising history, the money growing while the building shrank, and the answer to where it went: toward individuals who only one asset no merger can capture, an audience that showed up for them by choice.
Deep Dive walked the full stack layer by layer, content as the first impression and the lab, product as the first proof, education built on scaffolds, not brain dumps. Software is the layer you build with partners, last if at all.
And inside it, this week's invisible move, the founder narrative. The engineered personal story doing the job brand strategy departments used to bill for. The wound, the turn, the proof, the invitation.
Career strategy gave you the ladder and the order. Fund it with the work you already do. Let signals trigger each stage, and know that every rung asks you to become someone slightly new. An industry voice lined up 4 careers: Chris Doe, Joey Korenman, Michelle Fan, and Dan Coe into one 40-year timeline of the institution becoming optional.
Which leaves the homework, and we're holding you to it. Find your story this week, 4 sentences, and the diagnostic that comes with them. If a sentence needs embellishment to work, don't fix the sentence. Go find the truer moment, where you struggled, what turned it, what changed after, and who's earlier on your road. Put them somewhere public, your about page, your bio, or a pinned post.
And send them to us on X at Follow Empath, or on Facebook at Entertainment Media Path Podcast. We'll feature some in a future listener spotlight with your permission and talk through what makes them land. The truer ones, remember, the strongest version always was the true one.
Now, next week, and after a full episode on people who carry everything alone, we're flipping the camera around.
Episode 10 is about the gap, because most great creative work still gets made by teams, and when a project falls apart, it's almost never because someone lacked talent. It falls apart in the space between roles, the handoffs, the seams where one discipline ends and the next one picks up.
Film, animation, games, publishing, and advertising, all of them run on those same seams. And the collaborators everybody fights for treat the discipline next door as part of their own craft. There's a move hiding inside that too, and it's the opposite of what you'd guess.
So if today was about carrying the whole stack yourself, next week is about the other path. Becoming the person every team wants in the room, without becoming an expert at everything. Bring your worst handoff story, we have ours.
New episodes every Wednesday at 7 a.m., wherever you listen. And if you're a brand looking to reach creatives who are actively investing in their careers and their craft, sponsorship details are in the show notes. Or reach us directly at info@neonalchemy.nl. One last thought before the music. Everything in this episode, the mergers, the stacks, the 4 careers, comes down to a single trade the industry made this year. It's swap buildings for people. Whatever you build or don't build from here, you're on the winning side of that trade. You are the people.
Empath. Feel the creativity.
The path gets clearer 1 week at a time. This is Empath.
Empath is a partner podcast of Neon Alchemy BV. Story is how companies become human. We handle that part.